TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
Good afternoon. This is TNCRadio.LIVE, and this is the Truckers Network Radio Show with your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.LIVE. We're all about the talk, information, entertainment, and news that drivers want to hear. And there's a lot of news going on in trucking right now with new legislation proposed in Washington, gas and diesel shortages, potential shortages and higher prices of new semis and trucks. All of this can impact owner-operators and small fleets. Today we have Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing back with us. He has a finger on the pulse of the trucking industry and can answer some of the burning questions we've had. Welcome, Matt. I really appreciate you being back on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So I'm not exactly sure where we start. Where do you see the trucking industry headed? Should owner-operators be worried? Should they buy semis now or later? I know that the semiconductor shortage is really, the microchips and all of that, it's really created a crimp in both the consumer as well as the commercial markets.
It's amazing. And you know, the last time we were all talking on the show, Tom made a true emphasis on that point of the chip shortage. And, you know, we knew that it was going on, but it's really played out in the last 30 days. I mean, if we just drive down the road and look at even a personal vehicle dealership, and you'll see a ton of empty parking spots where a month ago, you know, there was a vehicle there and now they're not. We're hearing that inventory is down in some situations, particularly in the trucking space, of 50% reduction in inventory on the dealer's lots. So this is a big problem, and it's not going to be solved for probably another quarter or two.
So how does an owner-operator in a small fleet plan? Because, I mean, obviously, trucks wear out. Yeah, and this impacts even large fleets too, right? The turning cycle of Class A trucks in 2021 is being turned on its head. The order banks are completely full. The thought process is, and we're hearing this number being thrown around lately, that we may actually have 500,000 Class A trucks ordered this year. I mean, I can remember when 150,000 was a huge number, right? Yeah.
So, the order banks are full. Used truck prices are starting to go through the roof. Very difficult to get our hands on vehicles. A lot of our customers that we do financing for want to make purchases. They can't get the equipment, and they're scared to sell any of their old equipment because they just have no idea when the new replacement stuff's going to come in. So,
sure.
It's really a challenge, but I do think the answer to your question, Shelley, of should someone expand, should someone buy more equipment, is really the question of what level of confidence does the trucker have in his or her business, right? If you believe that your business is doing something different, then it's, different than just a normal organization, right? That you've got good contracts, you feel good about your company culture and your systems. You need to pull the trigger, place orders right now, and really think about growing, because I truly believe there's going to be an infrastructure bill passed. It's not going to be what's been presented, but that bill's going to pass, and there is going to be a tremendous need for products, steel and wood and concrete, and all the other things that are going to go into fixing schools and elderly homes and bridges and highways. It's going to be boomtown for truckers for the next 24 months. I really believe that.
Well, certainly there's going to be, in order for things to be done, it requires trucks to ship the product so that things can be repaired and all of that. But there's so much uncertainty with the infrastructure bill. And of course, that's another topic. The PRO Act was kind of pushed in there under the fold, if you will, which is also going to impact owner-operators. A lot of them are very worried. How does a small operation deal with all of this uncertainty?
The first thing I would suggest to someone, and I hope that everyone recognizes this not as a plug for my finance company, but it's a free tool that we have on our website at CFFnationwide.com. It's CharlieFrankNationwide.com. If anyone wants to go there, upper right-hand corner, they can click Budget Builder. And Budget Builder is a free tool that anyone can use to determine the profitability of a purchase. And y'all, I'm so apologetic. My dog is barking. I'm so sorry for that.
Your doggy's very excited about your product.
Yeah.
I like enthusiasm.
That's
my
funny.
first thing, I was looking for a mute button because I thought it was my dog, and so
I'm glad I have cats. Of course, they make a lot of noise too when they want to.
But that concept of going to the Budget Builder tool, it's free. There's no login. We're not asking for phone numbers or name or anything. It's a free tool on the website. Mm-hmm. And anyone can simply put in the basic numbers, right? How much revenue is the truck going to bring? What are the primary costs for a driver? Oh my goodness, y'all. I'm so sorry for that.
No, that's fine.
And
I think your dog wants to sing a little bit.
And once they do that, they can simply hit calculate, and it will tell them the rough profitability of the purchase. And so I encourage everyone to just do the basic math before we make the purchase, help justify that profitability is real and it can happen. And then if that's the case and they feel good about the contracts that they have and the team and the culture that the company has, they should pull the trigger. I really believe we're going to be in great shape. I think trucking and transportation's going to do very well for the next few years. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that. And by the way, I'm an extremely conservative person in my nature. I'm not the ultimate optimist of always thinking that, the glass is half full. Many days it's half empty for me. But in this situation, after 26 years of financing trucks, I really believe we're in good shape for the next few years.
I think you're right. And I think that there's a lot of evidence that points to that. The hesitation that maybe I have, and I think some others have, is between where we are right this very moment and that now we're really moving and doing stuff. It seems like there's a little gap. We're not there yet. I can't say that everything's ready to go and transportation's ready to boom and right now today, because there's still some unanswered questions. But big things like this whole insurance thing. That's a killer. That's going to be a killer for a lot of smaller fleets and independent people.
It is. Insurance is huge. It's the number one stumbling block that we face in our office. It's the number one deal killer in which we will approve someone to buy a piece of equipment, and they will want to buy the equipment, and they've made sure the contract is in place, and then all of a sudden they get the updated insurance quote, and it's 30 or 40% higher than they anticipated, and the deal is off. And we see that a lot.
And now if we get new mandatory minimums, it could throw a huge wrench into what I believe, I believe with you that there's, so much possibility, so much great stuff. But that one area alone really scares me, and I think scares, any member of the trucking industry. Again, that's not a small truck, small business, big business. This is an issue for anybody who drives, or owns a truck.
Definitely. I mean, there's no question that costs specifically for insurance is up and will stay up. I don't anticipate any insurance carriers reducing their premiums anytime soon. So we have to treat it as a line item, and we have to make sure that we charge accordingly for the freight that we haul. Mm-hmm. And that comes back down to being a great business owner. Mm. And it's the one thing that we see so often with our clients is they are fantastic equipment operators and they're great truckers, but they're often a little weak on their numbers. Mm. And so by using a tool, whether it's the Budget Builder tool or just really putting your thumb back on your business right now, it's not just about hauling freight at whatever the rates may be for the type of freight being hauled. It's can we do it profitably? So we have to be better business owners to really deal with some of the uncertainty, Tom. But I believe uncertainty is everywhere.
Sure.
It's certainly, for every one door that opens, one closes, I think another one opens. And the good news about insurance, too, is, by the way, it's across the board, right? So it's not as though one company is necessarily going to be more subject to it. Every transportation company is dealing with the problem.
Yeah. But if these mandatory minimums go in that are being proposed right now, the insurance industry itself is going to have to rethink some things because, just losing, all these truckers they could possibly lose, it's not a win for them either. It's really not.
It is. It's not. And with demand as high as it is right now, I believe the shippers are going to have to pay up, and they're going to have to cover this additional expense as long as the trucker is able to manage and really be able to present their case as to why the shipper has to pay more. But the supply and demand situation, I believe, is favoring the transportation company now versus the shipper. And, we know that in all of our experience with trucking, that hasn't been the case. So, we should make hay while the sun shines.
Absolutely. Gosh, I grew up with that from a farming family, actually. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.LIVE. We've got more from Matt Manero coming up. Driving 11 hours a day, 7 days a week can be emotionally and physically exhausting. Sleep is a very important part of a long-haul truck driver's life. Being well-rested and alert makes driving a lot safer for both the trucker and other drivers on the road. Getting enough sleep may sound easier than it seems. Living on the road makes it difficult to get the recommended 8 hours of sleep. In fact, it's common for truckers to not get 8 hours of sleep due to the 11-hour work shift. To help, we've put together 5 tips to help truckers stay awake while driving. Take vitamins. One way truckers can stay awake while driving is by taking vitamins. Not only are vitamins good energy boosters, they have tons of other health benefits too. Vitamin B helps with fatigue, depression, mood boosting, and muscle weakness. Consider adding vitamins to your morning routine. Eat healthy. An unhealthy diet has a huge impact on one's overall health. Dr. Jennifer Sachek says, our bodies rely on the energy and nutrients we get from food. So what you eat and how and when you eat it can either drain you or sustain you. It might be more convenient to stop at a fast food restaurant or truck stop, but constantly eating junk food drains your energy. Take a nap. Before you hit the road, consider taking a short 20-minute nap. Several studies have shown that a quick nap immediately increases alertness and gives a boost in cognitive performance. Stay hydrated. Water has many health benefits. One benefit is reducing the chance of being fatigued. Drinking a pint of cold water is a great way to refresh yourself and stay more alert. Listen to upbeat music. Listening to upbeat music will have you tapping your foot, singing along, and staying alert in no time. Avoid listening to relaxing music or audiobooks. Those tend to make drivers more relaxed and sleepy. Truckers have a very demanding job. In order to deal with the stress and demands, it's very important to get the right amount of sleep. Hopefully these 5 tips will help you stay awake while driving. Enjoy the best in trucker-style music and comedy. Weeknights starting at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.LIVE. I'm Shelley Johnson with my co-host Tom Kelly. We're talking with industry expert Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing. Matt, you've got some really great optimism on where the transportation industry is headed, and this is very encouraging. How do you talk to drivers and owner-operators and companies who really feel a lot of uncertainty on what's going on with Capitol Hill and what they're going to do? What are your thoughts on all of that? Because there's so many things being proposed right now. It just seems like a flurry of activity, and I think it's got people nervous.
Yeah, it does have people nervous, and there are very good reasons to be nervous. But one way I look at it is, how big is the marketplace, right? How large of an opportunity is there for an independent trucker or a small fleet? And the answer is it's tremendous. And there are so many big players in trucking who leave crumbs all over the place, whether they maybe aren't giving the service levels that the client wants, or new types of customers and new types of relationships that can be built. And how much does the small fleet owner really need? Let's say the small fleet owner needs $200,000 a year in revenue per truck, and they have 5 trucks. So they need $1 million a year in revenue to make it all work. There's a lot of opportunity to build a 5-truck fleet to do $1 million a year and make whatever that margin might be. I'm not here to say, what it is, but let's just say that, that might make the trucking company owner $150,000 or $200,000 a year net income, net profit off the $1 million in sales. It's not that hard to go into the marketplace as big as trucking and go get that piece of the pie. And that's what encourages me. It really is the story of when I started my finance company all those years ago. Was I knew that the big publicly traded banks were leaving tons of crumbs at their feet every single day. And if we just got in there and out hustled them and ran a good, clean business, we could go grab those crumbs and they'd add up to something meaningful. And I would encourage the truckers to look at it the same way. You don't need to be a J.B. Hunt or a Swift or a Schneider to do very well and prosper for your family and for your employees. So go get it. Go in the marketplace and get that piece of your pie. Go build a couple $1 million a year trucking company, and you will be okay. And the marketplace is ripe for you to go in and get it.
What are your thoughts on the PRO Act, which could impact a lot of owner-operators that lease back their trucks, that sort of thing? I think that's creating some nervousness. Did you have any thoughts on that at all?
I'm not a super expert on the PRO Act, but I am aware of it. It is concerning. It's a big potential fear. But the one thing of all these years of all of us working in transportation and particularly trucking is that we're all fearful, right? I mean, we're smart people, we're good people, we're conservative people, and that in itself does create fear and almost a little bit of scarcity. We're afraid of what's coming around the corner, not to offer a transportation or a driving type pun. And what I would encourage everyone is the same thing that I have to tell myself. If we're making smart business decisions, I'm going to bet on the American economy, and I'm going to say that the economy is going to grow regardless of who's in the White House and regardless of the policies being created. There's a big enough market share for me to go out there and get some of it. And I think we often think too small, right? The one truck operator isn't asking him or herself, what would it take if I had 10 trucks? I remember interviewing J.B. Hunt many years ago, and I said, why is it that so many truckers start with one truck and end with one truck, and you started with one truck and you ended with 10,000? And he says, because I never saw a one-truck trucking operation as a good enough business, but I saw a 10,000 trucking business as a great business.
Absolutely.
So people should think bigger.
I do. I think people should recognize that trucking is a huge marketplace with tremendous opportunity, and the big boys are stumbling every single day, which creates a tremendous opportunity for the small guys to go in and pick up some of that business and make a great life and a great living for themselves and their family and their employees. I mean, think about it. Trucking is an amazing way to get ahead with a relatively low barrier of entry. The barrier of entry is basically, do you have the credit and the wherewithal to buy equipment?
Mm.
Sure.
So
do you see a growth area in diesel and gasoline? Because obviously they're predicting some shortages there because they don't have enough trucks to haul it all around.
I think this is the reopening of the economy. Like, it's happening in all different types of industries. I mean, in the freeze that we had here in Texas, a lot of bushes and plants died, and literally in my front yard we had a few bushes that died, and I went to the nursery to buy replacement bushes. There are no bushes to buy. I can't buy replacement bushes for my front yard. Yeah. I think that's going that's going to settle in the next couple months. I think we're going to come back to a little bit of normalcy. I think the inflation is going to settle down. I think the supply chain is going to level out a little bit. And, but it's going to be at very heightened levels, nevertheless. The supply and demand situation is high, but I think some of the spike that we're seeing right now is going to level out.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. 600% or something increase in lumber.
Yeah.
It could cost like $5,000 for somebody to build a deck that could have cost maybe $600 to $800 last year. Wow!
Don't get me started.
Right. So imagine if you had you had budgeted for that and you had planned for that, and now you decided, okay, in the month of May I'm going to build it, and you realize that you're 30 or 40% short on what you had squirreled away to build the project. It's a big deal, but I think it's going to level out over the next couple months. I think it's a short-term spike at the sort of levels that we're seeing. And when it levels, it will level at a nice increase and a lot of opportunity. And so I think it's just a reopening surge, that surge will level out.
Well, as they say in The Godfather, we're not communist after all. So let's, take what happened yesterday. Okay, very tragically, a person lost his life, but a tornado hits Manero there in Atlanta, who, of course, makes their living out of being the go-to, keep the supply chain open of all industries and of all places for them to be hit by a tornado right in the middle of the day yesterday. So what does this do? It may not seem like much, but right now our supply chain is really fragile and will be maybe for a couple of years. And it doesn't take much. And there's good news, bad news here. Okay, for the general person who's going to the grocery store to buy a pound of hamburger to make spaghetti sauce, they're like, what the heck? But from a trucking perspective, this very fragile supply chain means busy all the time. You can make a lot of money right now if you want to be busy all the time and keep the supply chain flowing, because right now there's a lot of fragility in the system. Is that a real word? Am I making that up?
Yeah, that's a word.
It's, and we've got a lot of these little things, and like I said, not trying to say anything, screw the little guy or something, or let them eat cake, but at the same time, truckers, business owners, now's your moment, because here's one more place where supply chain interruption is only going to be fixed by throwing more trucks at the problem, because the warehouse is gone, so now we had to redo the way they did the warehouse. And these guys are the number 3 food supply people in America.
Sure.
Tom, my family had a tragedy a few years ago. My wife's brother passed away. He died at 46, and he left a wife and 4 children.
So sorry.
Very sad to hear that.
Thank you. They were unprepared too. They were financially unprepared, and for me that was the ultimate wake up call. Where he worked hard for 25 years, and he didn't have much to show for it, and he also didn't have life insurance nor health insurance, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Went to the doctor, just thought he was going to get a steroid shot and go back to work, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and passed almost a year later. But it was so devastating to us to watch the pain, both in my wife and myself and our in-laws. It was the ultimate wake-up call for me that said, don't say that I'm too busy. Say, let me make hay while the sun shines. I may not have this opportunity to be able to run miles and make income at the rates that we're making and squirrel it away. So let's go out and get it. And I kind of think when you just said what you said, it just reminded me of that story of, let's not be complacent right now. Let's get after it.
I would say that's very good advice that people really, really should actively pursue. You're listening to the Truckers Network Radio Show. We're talking with Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing. We'll have more great insight from Matt coming up right here on TNCRadio.live.
This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 4 things to consider before becoming a hazmat tanker driver. The demand for truck drivers is higher than ever. There are many different types of truck driving jobs. Whether you're a new driver or if you already have a couple of years' experience, it's never a bad idea to get new skills and endorsements. Hazmat tanker jobs are one of the many truck driving jobs. If you're considering becoming a hazmat tanker truck driver, here's some things you should know. What is a hazmat tanker? Hazmat truck drivers haul, deliver, and dispose of hazardous materials. Hazardous material can include things like gases, explosives, corrosive chemicals, poisons, and radioactive materials. Hazmat tanker drivers are not limited to hauling only hazardous material. They can also drive a non-hazardous tanker. Have the right requirements. Becoming a certified hazmat tanker driver will require you to add specific endorsements to your already existing CDL. You'll have to undergo training that is specifically designed for transporting and handling hazardous materials. After obtaining your CDL, you'll have to go through a background check and complete the application requirements. The application requires ID proof of being at least 21 years old, proof of citizenship or legal residence, a medical exam and eye exam. You must pass the hazmat knowledge test too. It's more stressful. Regardless of what you're hauling, being a truck driver is a stressful job. Safety is a top priority for truck drivers, especially for hazmat tanker drivers. Hauling hazardous material means that accidents or spills are much more severe. Hazmat tanker drivers are under much more stress and caution than drivers that haul non-hazardous material. Drivers need to be extra careful and need to plan their routes before driving. It requires a lot of skill. Truck driving is a difficult career and it's not for everyone. Being a truck driver already requires a lot of skill. For hazmat tanker drivers, there are specific skills that you'll need in order to be successful. Aside from the technical skills, hazmat tankers should also have personal skills. Some personal skills include being punctual, detail-oriented, and patient. These skills will make you a better driver in the long run. You make more money. Hazmat tanker drivers make more money on average. This is because more experience and skills required to haul hazardous loads. According to Salary.com, the average salary for a hazmat tanker driver in the United States is just over $63,000 a year, but the average salary range falls between $55,000 and $72,000 a year. Salary varies from education, certification, experiences, and additional skills. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Want to advertise on TNCRadio.live? Take advantage of great discounts for 2021. Check out the sponsors page at TNCRadio.live or send an email to info@TNCRadio.live. This is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with my co-host Tom Kelly, and we're talking with industry expert Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing. Matt, you're really super optimistic, and that's very encouraging to many of our listeners. What other insight do you have for owner-operators and fleet operators and everything? Coming full circle on where we started again, back to the belief system in your business that you believe that the contracts that you have and the team that you have built and the culture that you are operating with, if you believe in that, I believe it's a great time to be buying equipment. Place your orders for new equipment if that's the route you want to go. Be very cautious of trading in your used equipment because you don't know when the new trucks are officially going to come in. But along those lines, and Shelley, you addressed it when we started today, What are we going to do about repair and maintenance, right? I mean, if I got to hold my trucks longer than I planned on it, does that mean that I'm about to get into a riskier situation of my equipment breaking down? And that's a real potential problem. Our response to that is make sure we're putting away that repair and maintenance fund, that we all know we should be doing. Let's make sure that we're squirreling away
that money every month to offset it if we do have some increased repair and maintenance charges. But the good news is when you trade, your used truck is about to be worth a heck of a lot more money.
Oh, heck yeah. It's just amazing how the used vehicle market has just blown up.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked in the last year, like let's say you checked a year ago and you didn't like what you saw, check again. I think you might be pleasantly surprised that usually if somebody gives you an offer on something a year later, it's not even close to that. That's not true now. Your offer that you got a year ago may be substantially higher or lower than what you can get today.
Definitely. I think that's very, very, very true. So, those would be my recommendations. If you're going to buy new, get the order in the place as quickly as possible. Be cautious about repair and maintenance because you will probably have to hold your used vehicle a little bit longer. But you should be getting a greater value on your trade than you expected. And by the way, if you're buying used, you better get ready for some sticker shock because those prices are going to be higher, especially for the lower mileage, well-maintained, even if there's any warranty left. You're going to pay up for that right now.
Now, do typically owner-operators and fleet companies, if they do buy used, are they looking at a higher interest rate at all? Or
Yeah, not really. I mean, okay. we're very understanding of both new and used. So I wouldn't expect it to be paying up. Now, that does get into the equation of how used, right? I mean, sure. If you're buying something with 1 million miles on it, you're gonna pay a higher interest rate, and it'll be financed for a shorter term. Sure. Rates right now are very good. I mean, brand new truck rates are in the 4s and 5% range, very competitive. Used truck interest rates will be a point or two higher than that. But interest rates are historically low. We think they'll continue to stay low. So the cost of money is not going to be a barrier for anybody right now. It's really, the pure economics. And I really encourage everybody to go to CFFnationwide.com and click that budget builder tool and use that. We like to say at Commercial Fleet, never buy a truck until you run it through the budget builder.
Absolutely. Well, and would that help an owner-operator or a small company to really kind of get a feel for how to plan for, say, the cost of diesel and the cost of gas with the shortages that's going to drive up prices? Is this kind of going to give them a blueprint?
Yes.
For the next 6 months to a year?
Well, it's going to make them think harder about the answers to those questions, right? I mean, the first question we want to know is how much revenue do you anticipate the truck to generate on a monthly basis? That's the starting question. And then we're going to add the tool will ask you for how much are you going to pay for your driver? What's your fuel going to be? What's your insurance cost going to be? Mm-hmm. We always recommend a repair and maintenance number. We at our company, we always recommend $1,000 a month as being squirreled away in your repair and maintenance fund. And then when they hit calculate, it'll spit out the number. The beautiful part about the budget builder tool is that if the revenue starts too low and the expenses are accurate, it's going to show you that you're going to lose money on the purchase, right? That you can't make money at $8,000 a month in revenue.
Right.
So it's going to force you, Shelley, to ask and seek the answers to these very basic questions. And to be frank with you, you'd be amazed how many customers have never run a truck through this simple analysis. Yeah, it's amazing to us how many clients didn't really look at it this way. They just figured, well, if I buy a truck, I'll put it to work. Well, let's go a little step further and figure out that we can do it profitably. Right.
Make that truck work for itself and work for you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the average person doesn't do that real well.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, that more truckers don't spend more time, analyzing their profitability. And by the way, if it shows that it's going to spit out $7,000 or $8,000 a month profit on the purchase, it may actually help you with the confidence to remove the fear of, yes, good, then I can make this purchase and be successful with it. Or you might even go a step further and say, well, why am I only buying one? Maybe I should buy two.
Sure.
So I think I'm very, very positive on on the transportation industry right now. And you got to remember, this is coming from a finance guy, because we're writing 4 and 5 year contracts for customers. So we can't just look out 12 or 24 months. We really need to look out. Is the customer may have Boomtown for 2 years, but what happens in the 3rd and 4th year? But we're writing loans as fast as customers want them. The biggest challenge we have is we literally have more customers wanting to buy equipment than there is equipment available. And that is directly related to the chip shortage that, Tom was referencing in our last time on the show. And, Tom, you were so spot on last time. It was a big concern of yours, and it's played out in such a short period of time. It's played out to be so true.
And this is, again, another area where you were saying another quarter or two we should be in better shape, and that's true. We 3-6 months from now, I think we're going to be in better shape unless anything goes wrong. We are really in a shaky position. Everything goes okay unless some hurricane wrecks some plant, in the next 2 months or so. If something like that happens, it's going to be devastating just across the entire. It will, I believe, harm the American economy in a measurable way. So we just got to really, pray, cross your fingers, whatever, and hope that they can meet the demands. Those who are making chips can meet the demands and produce the quality chips. That's the other thing that we're getting concerned about in the IT side. Is don't this is not the time to cut corners, because the last thing you want to do is build a bunch of trucks or cars and then have to recall them all because they're not running right.
Yeah, and my research after our last conversation, there's about 17 chips required for a Class A truck. So there's a lot of chips needed, and if you got 2 of them that work good, that's a big problem. You need 17 to work.
And then demand is even higher on the on the auto industry end for these high end smart cars. The smarter the car, the more the chips, and the demand's way up there too. And everybody wants to park their car with their eyes closed, and
that's about right.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of limiting. Which companies are going to get which chips and that kind of stuff. But if something happens, we will be in some kind of rationing. And I don't know how the government will handle that, but there will have to be some kind of rationing to decide what's going to get built for the best, for the best of the economy, for the best of America.
Yeah. I also think we have to embrace the belief system that we will win. That we will do whatever.
We will. In the long run, it's going to work out. We just we're on some tight ropes right now. That's, in my opinion, I'm with you. Strike now, because if you wait and something does go wrong, now you're really stuck.
Strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, we don't want to be Uncle Bob. We don't want to be Uncle Bob and going down and saying, "Boy, if I'd only bought that corner lot," Well, we want to have bought the corner lot. And in trucking, that means we have to pull the trigger. We have to probably take advantage of the economic factors that are in our favor right now. We probably have to grow a little bit and scale a little bit. I believe that. And then we need to squirrel some away for the rainy day. I hate to sound old school, but it can't last forever either. So
that's right.
We have to be fiscally, and I encourage everyone to just challenge yourself to make sure you're running the best business you possibly can, right? I always like to ask who you're reading, who you're watching, and who you're listening to. So where are you getting good quality information that perhaps educates you a little bit more on how to run a great business, right? No one taught me how to run business. I had to learn it all, and we used to refer to it as the school of hard knocks, and I don't believe the school of hard knocks is much of a school at all. No. I think it's really a nightmare.
It can be a painful yes.
So if we can just stay diligent to making sure that we're running the best possible business we can, and therefore leading the best possible companies we can, I think it's all going to work out. And for those of us that are in business for ourselves, we have to realize that there's a lot of people eating on our plate too, right? Our employees need us to lead them right now.
Right.
And they need us to run great companies, and they need their paycheck from us. And that's a big responsibility for business owners, and we shouldn't take it lightly. We should really challenge ourselves and say, are we truly running the best possible business we can? And that information, by the way, is everywhere. I mean, on YouTube or podcasts or your radio show or books, it's everywhere. You don't have to go to school anymore. You can just read a book.
That's right. You got to love the internet.
Yeah, watch YouTube.
We're talking with Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing on the Truckers Network radio show. We've got some more great insight coming up from him right here on TNCRadio.LIVE. Definitely stay tuned for more coming up. Budgeting tips for over-the-road truck drivers. Budgeting can be rather overwhelming at first. It requires a plan and self-discipline, but there's no need to be scared. Once you get the hang of budgeting, it'll become easy and will no longer feel like you're restrained from your finances. It's a good feeling to know exactly how much you're spending and where your money's going. Start budgeting today, and you'll begin to save money and see a difference in your finances. Here are some great budgeting tips for over-the-road truck drivers. Know your why. The first step to creating a budget is understanding your why. What is your reasoning for creating a budget? What do you want to accomplish? Are you trying to pay off debt? Are you trying to save for a big purchase? Or are you just wanting to be more conscious of your spending? Knowing your why before creating a budget will help motivate you and keep you on track. Set goals. Setting goals will help you achieve your why. To pay off debt or to save a specific amount, you need to know how much you need to be saving and budgeting each month. It's much easier to save and budget when you have a specific goal. Saving just to save does not always keep you motivated. Know your income. Since drivers typically get paid by the mail, drivers have a fluctuating income. Unless you have a dedicated route, your paychecks will vary. Drivers with a set income have a much easier time creating their budget because they know the exact amount they're bringing in every month. If you have a fluctuating income, it's best to know your baseline, meaning you need to know the bare minimum expenses that you need to cover every month. Analyze your spending. Next, you'll need to analyze your spending habits. You can do that by looking at your bank account and examining where you're spending most of your money. Are you spending most of your money at truck stops? Fast food restaurants? Another great way to evaluate your spending is to make a list in a notebook or your cell phone for every purchase you make throughout the month. Keeping track of your spending will not only give you an idea of how much you're spending each month, it will also make you more mindful of your spending. Needs versus wants. When budgeting, it's important to know the difference between needs versus wants. Things you need as a truck driver: food, place to sleep, clothing, toiletries. Things you may want: entertainment, TV, video games, computers, Netflix or Hulu subscription, accessories for your rig. As a budgeter, you need to pay attention to your needs first and save for the things you want. Set a limit. Setting a spending limit is the best way to keep yourself from overspending. Write down all your necessary living expenses and keep in mind how much you want to save each month. Then determine how much you want to spend. A good method to help you set a limit is the envelope system. Budgeting takes time and self-discipline. It's not easy at first, but over time, it will become easier and easier.
You're listening to TNCRadio.LIVE. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.LIVE. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with industry expert Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing. Matt, you've had some great insight, and you've been super encouraging to owner-operators and small fleets and even big fleets on where the trucking industry is headed. Where can people find you and your trucker resources?
Great, thank you. They can go to our website, which is CFFnationwide.com, CFF like Charlie, Frank, nationwide.com. There's a whole slew of resources there, but The one thing I'd love to offer people today is they can go to the Budget Builder link and just run the purchase through the Budget Builder before you pull the trigger on it to make sure that it makes sense. In our company, Commercial Fleet's been around for this 26 years of financing truckers. So anyone can call our office at the main number or, click the form on the website. And I just encourage everyone to do it. You'll find our team very consultative. We're here to help. We're interested in, making you the best decision rather than putting you into a 4 or 5 year deal that doesn't make sense. So let's get on the phone with us, and we'd love to talk to you about financing, running a better business. And Tom, I love the idea of, the Truckers Business Network or radio show or something like that too. I think the market is ripe for the trucking community to get good quality information on how to run a business better.
And we'd love to feature some of your information. I think that that's what we're all about. We want to keep the trucking community completely informed because they're the heartbeat of America. So I really appreciate you being on the show, Matt. This has been great. Matt Manero of Commercial Fleet Financing. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.LIVE. Definitely stay tuned for more coming up. Six safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. When there's an incoming heat wave, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow the Truckers Network's 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check your tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road causes your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to look at the situation could lead to engine failure. Also make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose can lead to engine failure. Check your brakes. Cold and hot weather affect your semi-truck's brakes. When you brake, you create a significant amount of friction and your brakes become extremely hot. When you add in hot weather, your brakes have an even higher chance of failing. To avoid your brakes from failing, brake gradually to decrease the amount of heat. Also, regularly check your brake pads to ensure they're working properly. Tips to protect yourself from the hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these tips to keep yourself cool and safe. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it.
TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
Hi, this is Tom Kelly, managing partner of IMSICO, LLC, doing business as TNCRadio.LIVE. The website TNCRadio.LIVE and any content or podcast related to the website are copyrights of IMSICO, LLC, copyright 2021. All rights reserved. Any redistribution or reproduction of all or any part of the contents in any form is prohibited other than the following. We welcome you to download and play the publicly available podcast and share with others for personal use. Please acknowledge TNCRadio.LIVE as the source of the material. You may not, except with our express written permission, distribute or commercially exploit the content. And while we endeavor to keep the information up to date and correct, we make no representations or warranties of any kind expressed or implied about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, suitability, or availability with respect to the website, the podcast, or the information, products, services, or related graphics contained on the website or podcast for any purpose. Any reliance you place on such information is therefore strictly at your own risk. For additional information, including details regarding monetization of this podcast, send email to podcasts@tncradio.live.